Kapoor. I can see Mrs. Ina Bose also have joined, Mr. Amitav Datta. So with the permission of everyone, the speakers, we would start off the event. Good evening, everyone. We'll just give me 2 minutes. We'll start off with a short video of Calcutta Management Association, post which we will hand it over to Mr. G.M. Kapoor, Executive Committee member of Calcutta Management Association, to kindly take us throughout the event. And at the end, after the conversation is over, we would have amongst us Mrs. Ina Bose, Executive Committee of member of Calcutta Management Association, to propose the vote of thanks, and the President of Calcutta Management Association, Mr. Amitav Datta, would propose the closing remarks. So we are starting off with the event today with a short video of Calcutta Management Association. Just a minute.
1958 marked the beginning of an idea to bring about how one views and understands management and its potential for meaningful interaction. This led to the birth of Calcutta Management Association, or CMA, with Sir Jahangir Gandhi, the then Director General of Tata Iron and Steel Company Limited, as the founder president. CMA today is a vibrant organization, as vibrant as the city it is located in. Affiliated to All India Management Association, or IMA, the apex management body in the country, CMA today has a membership base of over 1,000, including nearly 100 corporates. True to its mission and vision to create a platform for the management community where contemporary management ideas can be conceptualized, formulated, developed, and practiced, CMA over the years has organized a series of path-breaking meets, workshops, seminars, talks, interactive sessions, and exchange programs. We at CMA have taken on the onus of covering a wide area, from management education to management practice, with the objective of fostering and developing excellence in management, all to help profit the mind.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to our fourth edition of the In Conversations. May I now request Mr. G.M. Kapoor, Executive Committee member of Calcutta Management Association, to kindly take over and introduce the speakers and give the introductory remarks. Mr. Kapoor, please.
Thank you, Mr. Barua. It is indeed a proud privilege and an honor to introduce two very eminent citizens of Calcutta to this conversation for the members of the CMA. I'm also very proud to belong to CMA, which you have seen in the clip, has done human service, being the oldest management association in the country. The human service it has done to the cause of management and its practice in education. Both Mr. Amit Chaudhuri and Rita Bhimani are close friends, and that's why it's indeed more of a privilege that I have been given the honor of introducing them. I have worked very closely with Amit, and to give his formal introduction, I will of course have to go through the process, but otherwise, apart from his well-known prowess in writing and in music, he is also an activist, which is more of a lesser-known trait, if I may put it this way, but his determination and commitment to the city is really enormous. And that's where we work together. And anyway, I take this opportunity to introduce Mr. Amit Chaudhuri. He is the author of 7 novels, the latest of which is Friend of My Youth. He is also an essayist, poet, musician, and composer. He is a fellow of the Royal Society of Literature Awards for his fiction include the Commonwealth Writers' Prize, the Encore Prize for Best Novel, for Second Best Novel, for the Best Second Novel, it's for the Best Second Novel, the Los Angeles Times Book Prize for Fiction, and the Indian government's Sahitya Academy Award. In 2013, he was awarded the first Infosys Prize in the Humanities for outstanding contribution to literary studies. His first novel, A Strange and Sublime Address, is included in the Toybin and Carmen Khalil's The Modern Library, the 200 best novels of the last 50 years. And his second novel, Afternoon Rag, was on the Novelist and Enright's list of 10 best short novels for The Guardian. In its 25th anniversary edition, appeared earlier this year with a new introduction by the critic James Wood. The BBC recently called him the best living writer of the English sentence. Of his criticism and fiction, Amartya Sen has said, it really is quite extraordinary that someone could have had the kind of range that Amit Chaudhuri has in terms of his work, and it could be so consistently of the highest quality. According to the historian Wendy Doniga, his novels are the most internal, psychological, delicately written, introspective of all the contemporary Indian novelists. Amit Chaudhuri is a highly regarded singer in the Hindustani classical tradition, of whom Vikram Seth has said, Chaudhuri is a wonderful singer, without any qualifications, such as considering his distinction as a writer. There is a sense of calm, a simplicity, an inwardness to his singing, which deeply appeals to me. He has also been acclaimed as a path-breaking composer and improviser who performed most recently at Queen Elizabeth Hall, London. In 2017, the government of West Bengal awarded Chaudhuri the Sangeet Samman for his contribution to Indian classical music. He is Professor of Contemporary Literature at the University of East Anglia and was University College London's annual visiting fellow in 2018. That year, he was also an inaugural fellow of the Columbia Institute of Ideas and Imagination in Paris, and in 2019 became an honorary fellow at Balliol College, Oxford. A lot of this is news to me, and I'm more than impressed by what I have learned just now. Welcome, Amit, and we look forward to a very interesting conversation. And I just, of course, take the opportunity to introduce Rita Bhimani. She's one of the iconic figures of the profession of public relations. She runs her independent PR consultancy firm, Rhythm Communications, which has crossed 25 years. She has made a mark nationally and internationally in her field when she was on the board of directors of the prestigious International PR Association. She is currently an independent director on the board of some Indian companies. Her recently launched book on PR, titled PR 2020, The Trending Practice of Public Relations, is already making waves in giving people a chance to understand the nuances of PR and draw in a larger young segment to embrace this prolific profession. This is her third book on PR, and another book, The Calcutta School of Music, Symphony Centenary, commemorating 100 years of the CSM, were released in 2018. Giving back to the profession is her teaching of a 3-year degree course in media science. Her columns for mainline dailies and magazines, and now a web magazine, have covered everything from art to food, corporate matters, advice columns, travel, and she is an anchor person for a range of industry meets and literary readings and celebrity face-to-face interviews through her Red Sofa Conversations. She is creative producer of a documentary of Raja Ram Mohan Roy. Another versatile personality, I am overwhelmed with the talent we have here with us, and I am sure all of you will enjoy this conversation with these two eminent personalities. So I hand over without any further delay to Rita to start the conversation.
Thank you very much, GM. Are we unmuted now?
Yes, very much.
Okay, that's wonderful. So can I start? Because I'd like to ask Amit the first question. How about that?
Yes, you can start.
Amit, I'd like to know, and this is all really related to the lockdown right now. So has the lockdown given you more time to think, to create, to ruminate, to make music, to cook, so many things? Before you answer my question, by the way, I would like to quote from your diary of social distancing, because you have done quite a lot of writing during this lockdown. And in the first part of your diary of social distancing, I found something very intellectually stimulating. There were others which were very quirky and compelling. But the one that I just wanted to bring in right now is a little story you started off with. You talked about the Joy Bangla Epidemic, which happened soon after the creation of Bangladesh. And what did happen at that time was that your cousins contracted it, and you, of course, not wanting to be left out of the quarantine room where they were having a lot of fun, you entered and you hugged them and you wrestled with them, and you also got infected quite joyously, I believe. Now, in your piece, you talked about something you discussed with your sessions, students abroad in an online session, an essay by an Irish poet critic called Tom Paulin. And Paulin had in his essay said something which you brought in very relevantly about a group called the Ranters in the 17th and 18th century England, who advocated a destruction of social distancing in favor of free and sometimes profligate mingling. So can you please comment on this kind of profligate mingling, which in the UK, by the way, when the pandemic started, they had hinted at a strategy that would allow the novel coronavirus to infect 60% of the country's population so that a degree of herd immunity could be achieved. Over to you, Amit, on your comments.
Right. Thank you so much, Rita. I think there were two questions over there. One had to do with the essay, which you just referred to, and the other to do with what have I been doing during lockdown.
Yes.
So the essay begins with me sort of breaking the taboo of mingling during this Joy Bangla episodes, you know. So my cousins, who would have been whatever 7 or 8 at the time, and I would have been, I can't remember now, I mean 10, so they would have been 7 and 9 respectively, maybe, if I'm getting my calculations correct. I mean, they had been quarantined in a room. And I was feeling extremely frustrated, so I decided to get conjunctivitis myself, and so I went into that room and embraced them. I mean, of course, this is not something that one would encourage anyone to do with the coronavirus, but it's a kind of indication of the human need for contact and collision even. So something that, let's say, in the West, where things are so much more filtered out, especially since the West has become what is now called a developed society. The idea of the developed society has to do with filtering out contact. You know, there isn't the sort of messiness with which we identify developing societies, and yet the whole project, let us say, of modernism and art and poetry, movements in art, let's say impressionism, has to do with introducing or reintroducing messiness. If you think of impressionist paintings or post-impressionist paintings, I mean, you can't, in a conventional sense, according to the conventions we've been handed over by the European Renaissance, quite make out the outlines where one figure ends and another one begins, or where the background ends and the central figure starts. So the initial kind of viewers of the Impressionist painting said that, well, what is this? I mean, this is not, these are smudges. They are not proper figures at all. So the Renaissance taught us a kind of idea of perfection, which has contributed a great deal to what we understand by development or developed societies. But there are dissenting voices in this, and the whole project of, let's say, impressionist art, modernism, dissent from this idea of filtering out, and they say that for a proper aesthetic experience, or a spiritual experience, or a human experience, you need to be open to this kind of messiness. And this is what I was looking at that time. I wrote this in March. It was only 2 weeks since the terms social distancing and self-isolation had come into existence or were being used, widely. So one was getting one's head around this whole business of social distancing and thinking of all the refusals in history to maintain social distance in the interests of what we call life. Now, we were being told that social distancing is necessary for us to in fact cling on to life. And I was looking at the history that saw social distancing as anathema to existence, to life. So I was looking at this paradox at a time when the lockdown hadn't begun. The piece came out in the Los Angeles Review of Books 3 days after the lockdown was, I think lockdown began on the 23rd of March. Is that when it began? Around then. And it comes out on the 26th. So I'd written it before lockdown, but with lockdown kind of imminent. And I was thinking about those things at that time. As to what I've been doing during lockdown, yes, I've been doing all the kind of things I usually do because, I am always in a kind of state of semi-lockdown because I work from home. I don't go to office unless I'm teaching. But most of the time,
self-isolate in a way.
I self-isolate in a way, but for a very, very long time, I have understood exactly why, let's say, French philosophers went to cafes to write, because complete isolation and silence is inimical, I find, to creativity. So I quite like the fact that there are people in the house, and these people are usually people who work here, moving in and out when I write. I mean, I'm now talking about normal circumstances, the way I've written for the last 30 years. I've quite liked being disturbed in the midst of self-isolation. It is helpful to the creative process not to be completely in a vacuum. So that lockdown is known to me in a sense, this state of lockdown. But yes, I have found more time to think about these things, to write, and to do things I've never done for decades, such as finding out how to upload music on YouTube.
Yes.
So all the various recordings I had in classical music, my own recordings from HMV, other places, and which I had never uploaded to YouTube, I finally did during lockdown.
Yes. In fact, you sent me quite a lot of links of some of the stuff you've uploaded. And I'm sure you can send these links to other people as well, so that they can also enjoy.
You can just put my name in the search engine and it'll come up,
And it'll come up also. In fact, like you, I actually also don't like to work in total isolation, Because remember, as a woman, first of all, I run my own company from my apartment. So what happens is that when I'm sitting at the computer and I'm trying to create something, of course, the cook will come in and she'll say, what shall I make for lunch? And then somebody else will come in and they don't realize that one is actually working. So you've got to get used to this state of multiple reactions to people. And what I do nowadays is actually I put on my headphones, and the moment the headphones are on, they realize, okay, now you can't get in. Actually, you can't. And the Bose headphones are fantastic. You can't hear a thing outside. Right. So like you, what I've been doing during the lockdown is a couple of very interesting things. I've been finishing a book on the revival of Muga.
That's lovely.
I have a friend, Shampa Das, and she has been reviving Muga for a long time. So she had asked me to write this book. I wrote it before lockdown. All the writing was finished, but then we found, look, we've got to design the book. How do we do it? And when we approached these publishers and the printer, they said, we'll give you the designers. They'll work from home. So it's a very unusual situation. I've never met these women before. They're designing from home. They're sending it to us. We're looking at it and approving it. It's a very unusual situation for me, from actually going and sitting with the printers and looking at how they're creating it, and pre-press time. You know how it is. That can be exciting. So this is one. And then I'm trying to also finish a couple of small add-ons to my PR book, which the publisher asked me to do. An A to Z of communication, which would be, people don't have time to read too much. So they want what we call in Bangla, chuti pana boi. So trying to create that, but the problem is it's going to be an ebook. So right. People will have to read on their Kindles, and you actually want a book which you can hold, right? All your books you can hold, and we've got many of your books in our library. So this is the frustration, but it is also a challenge, I feel.
Sure. Absolutely. And what else have you been doing, Rita? Have you been cooking as well? Some Parsi
yes.
food?
Sorry?
Some Parsi food, maybe?
Oh, are you talking about, have I been cooking?
Yes.
I am a lousy cook, but yes, I remember why you got to know about the Parsi food is because we have a small group where we order food.
And we live in the same building. So
we live in the same building. So your wife, Rinka, got to know about it. And she said, why are you ordering so many eggs? And I said, because I'm going to make this Parsi dish called Bhinda par Ida. And it's a beautiful, lots of bhindi at the bottom. And you break these eggs on top. And it looks so pretty. And you bake it. And it makes a great party dish. I was actually making it for a friend, not for ourselves. You can't have such a thing. But yes, I have done it. But I think you're the one who really is pretty adept at cooking. I think you got it from your mother. I remember when I came over to your place, she fed us some fabulous stuff. But there is that little story about how you became better at cooking when you were in England. Tell us about that.
I don't know what the story is, but I'll tell you how I began to learn cooking in London because I love good food, and I love good Bengali food, and I love good East Bengali food, and I love the great East Bengali food that was made by my mother. So that's a lot of kind of...
Lots of chilies also?
Chilies, yes, I have a high threshold for, but not everything is hot, But if I'm sort of served with something that has a lot of heat, I'm not unnerved by it. I can relish it. But I learned to make a lot of niramish vegetarian stuff also, which, as you know, in Bengal was developed a great deal by widows.
Absolutely.
So there's often no garlic or onion in that food. And I
Yes.
learned how to make that. I learned how to make chana from milk, how to curdle the milk and tie up the remaining curd in a nakra or a sort of rag overnight. This is all
Hang
in
the
one go.
curd, yes.
Yeah, and then fry the thing with a pinch of maida later on and make chana kofta. I'd learned all that. Then I taught when I went to Oxford and met Rinka, my wife Rosinka, in 1990. I taught her cooking. I don't know if I taught her anything else. She taught me a lot, but I certainly taught
This interesting story that you were actually doing your riyaz in the hostel, and I think after a while these guys got quite fed up of your practice, and you ultimately had to move out to an apartment so that you could be by yourself.
Rita, I never stayed. See, when I was in Oxford, I was in student accommodation, what you're calling a hostel. I was in a place called Holywell Manor, which was mainly meant for students of the graduate students of Balliol College. But when I was at University College London, then I stayed in a studio flat. And the main reason for that was my terror of being overheard by other students when I did my riyaz. And I also found that at that time, and I'm speaking about 1983, the English were extremely uncomprehending of foreign sounding music.
Exactly.
And especially Indian music, which immediately they had certain connotations to do with those particular kinds of sounds which we associate with mead, for instance. The glide from one note to another. So one evening I always used to sing at that time. I was always practicing. So I was sitting in a restaurant Indian restaurant with my parents and my uncle in Belsize Park. Soon after I had moved to London to begin at UCL. And I was humming to myself as usual. I was going over some kind of phrase. And I suddenly heard a young man at the other table parody me. That's how he went, And his girlfriend kind of shushed him, told him to shut up.
Yes.
But I was mortified by this kind of, Rita, one of the things I loved about India, and I still love, is I could take these very crowded local trains, let's say in Bombay, at that time, I'm talking about then early 80s, and sing away without anybody actually noticing me. This is the kind of thing that goes back to the social distancing question earlier, which means that you're not actually disturbing anyone else by being in their company. You can still be yourself. This is the dichotomy, the binary between being by oneself, being solitary, and being with company, which pertains to Western society, is often not observed over here. You are surrounded by others, as you maybe might be in a pujo, pujo pandal or whatever, and yet you might be very alone. The whole fact of seeing the goddess depends on you having some solitariness intact, even in the midst of huge crowds. So,
in fact, I'll take you back to a particular book which was called The Lonely Crowd. Do you remember that?
Right.
Yes.
No, I don't.
Yes, it speaks so well of what is happening now.
So when I was on that local train, I could sing, I could go over and hone these musical phrases without ever being noticed. When I was in England, I found people super conscious on the tube, in restaurants. So I stayed in a studio flat and did my riyaz there, and I had trouble with the neighbors. So I had to develop an extremely thick skin. Besides my cooking skills, I had to develop a thick skin.
Look here, you would also have trouble with the neighbors in those days with your cooking skills as well. They weren't still very happy with Indian cooking and with the smells and, the flavors in those days. So
by then, Rita, they had begun to sort of get addicted to Indian food. Early 80s. When my parents were there, certainly they objected to curry smells and things like that.
Yes, but those things happen. To come back to a little bit of writing, I was wondering which have been your favorite genres or genres of writing, you know, but since you've done so much of essay writing, your novels are there, your poetry, what would you say you'd want to do more of now?
As a reader, poetry is my first love. I also love the essay. I dislike anything with narrative in it. So I'm not a natural reader of the novel. Yet I return to it as a form again and again to create a kind of non-narrative novel in which everything that's happening outside of the narrative is of interest to me. So while to most novelists, let's say, the main story is of interest to me, everything that is happening on the edges of the main story is what absorbs me. And I've always wanted to make the kind of novel that I write a kind of home for what happens on the edge of, on the outskirts of the main story. That's what I love.
But some of your novels, I think the earlier ones, I thought they were somewhat autobiographical.
And yet you will find, you'll get very little information about my life from these novels.
Possibly, yes.
You will get autobiographical information only to the extent of, did he visit, a pharmacist, and what did the bottles of medicine look like? That's what you'll get, but you won't get episodes that kind of comprise my life. You'll get everything that is outside of the main narrative of my life, which is the act of looking, at the world around me. That's what the novel is for.
Yes, and the act of imagination, I think that is there, which is something which, when you think of the fact that I come from a family of writers, my great-grandmother, my grandmother was a writer. She was part of the Kollul Jug, part of the Blue Stocking group in that group, which was mainly all male, and she was the only woman writer. My mother was, she was Shuniti Devi.
Okay.
And of course, my great-great-grandmother founded the Maharani Girls' School in Darjeeling when they wouldn't let any of our Indian girls into the British schools. So she says, well, I will make my own. And she did. And that school is still running 115 years later. And so then came my mother, who was a novelist, a poet. She wrote detective novels, by the way, in English.
I love
and
it.
Poet.
Did you say in English?
In English, yes.
Wow.
She wrote for the Illustrated Weekly, lots of short stories. And towards the end of her life, she says, let me translate 15 of my short stories from English into Bangla, because nobody else can do it better than I can. And she did. And Satyajit Ray was alive. He gave the title Panchodoshi to that set of novels.
Right.
Now, you can say that, look, all these people and all the women in your family have been writers and novelists. How come you didn't get into that? And what I'd like to say is that I was actually influenced by my father, P.N. Mukherjee, who was one of the pioneers in public relations for Tata Steel. He was the first PRO of Tata Steel. So somehow, by a process of osmosis, which you will understand very well, Amit.
Yes.
I got into PR, and I've been in PR now for 50 years. And that's why what I've been writing is much more on the profession, because what happened is, from the beginning, people would come and ask me, well, what is it that you really do? What does public relations mean? What does corporate PR do for companies?
Rita, they ask poets the same question. What is it that you really do? That the same question is asked of poets as well.
Yes. You mean they ask a poet, but why do you write poetry?
No, what do you actually do during the day? I mean, the poet cannot be writing poetry all the time. So
Yes.
what do poets do with their time? They say it's a similar kind of question.
It is a similar kind of thing. So when I got fed up of these questions, I said, okay, why don't I write a book on it? So I wrote my first book, The Corporate Peacock, and the second, and then the third. And I'm hoping that through these books, more CEOs will understand what it is really to try to project for their companies. You know, that every company is in a state of competition right now during the lockdown. Of course, people have cut back on their budgets and so on. But this is the time when they have to communicate more actively, I feel. This is what we are trying to advise our clients, that in times of distress, you have to make your brand speak in a stronger manner, but without trying to impose your will on people. But you've got to keep up the whole chatter. You've got to keep up your image. You know, there's this whole re-engineering of image. This is what we are trying to do. We're trying to continue to strategize with our clients on doing this during the lockdown period, trying to tell them, please also talk to your employees. Try to give them a sense of calm, give them a sense of hope that all is not lost, that things will get back to normal. And this is what many companies are doing. Many CEOs are doing a lot of videos for their employees. And we have helped also to do some of this.
Yes. Wonderful.
How much time do you get to practice, Riyaz? With your wife, around with your daughter, who's now come for a short while from King's College?
Yes. Rita, you know, one thing that's not been happening, as you know, but for me it's unusual, is travel. You know, I'm quite possibly, you know, I would have been far more displaced than I have been in the last 3 or 4 months because of the lockdown. And it's a good thing. I'm happy that I'm not having to, you know, catch these flights and go to Dubai and from there to London or whatever. And that has been, you know, both a matter of bewilderment, this kind of staying put, but also hugely restful, and has given me time to do all these various other things. Riyaz, I have to like all my other things, my writing, I have to do these things whether I'm staying put or not. You know, if I'm in Oxford for a week, I will be doing Riyaz over there. If I'm somewhere else, New York, for 5 days, I'll be doing Riyaz over there. This I have to keep doing. A very sort of simple answer to your question would be, I do 3 hours of Riyaz twice a week, and 1 to 2 hours other days a week, unless my voice needs a rest. And that is also important, to rest the voice. It is both kind of important to the voice itself and to the imagination, you know, to not be jaded. So otherwise, yes. And I do 2 to 3 hours with gaps. You know, certain days I take off.
I'm really inspired because actually I have continued to learn the piano, Western classical music, for many years now. But when the lockdown happened, I was wondering how I was going to take lessons. And my teacher told me, why don't I give you WhatsApp lessons? So you just keep your phone next to the keyboard and I will call you and then we will have a 1 hour lesson. So she can see my fingers on the keyboard. And that's how we do our lessons. So I'm doing a lot of Chopin and Beethoven's Pathetic and a few others. So, but none of it is as professional as what you're doing. But I think it gives one a sense of doing something more, of expressing oneself and of challenging oneself to do something beyond writing, beyond corporate work and so on. I think it's important for people to do something more. So this is one of the things that I've been trying to do.
Fantastic. the pathetic is a difficult thing to play.
It's very difficult. I'm doing the second and third movements, and it's extremely difficult, I can tell you, but also very rewarding when you can get it right. I'm also doing the raindrop prelude, which is fabulous for this kind of weather.
Right. Yes, of course.
You've been doing some unusual things like making road signs. Now, how did that come to you? And you know that lovely, you had a very good exposition at the Harrington Arts Center on the sweet makers of Calcutta. That was something very charming, but also the road signs. Tell us something about it. If you've got a few, maybe you'd like to display them for people. How exactly did you come upon it?
You know, Rita, I had the idea for foraying into art, into the realm of art, of experimenting with the idea of, you know, what's possible as an artwork. So the first idea I had to do with what you just mentioned, the sweet shop owners of Calcutta. And so what I'm referring to is the portraits of the founders. And often these portraits are from the late 19th or early 20th century. And they're very grand men, many of these founders of the sweet shops. So if you go to Bhimnag, for instance, first of all, you encounter an extraordinary space, which is also very calm, besides also being very profuse with sweets and a variety of sweets. But if you look behind, you see Bhimnag and you see his brother, you know, very grand men. So I remember being struck by these portraits and thinking, they look very much like the great men of the Bengal Renaissance. You know, these people, these sweet shop owners could just as well be social reformers or novelists or scientists from the end of the 19th century.
Added something, they added something very sweet and something more. They all became institutions, many of these sweet shops.
The sweet shops became institutions, and the owners, the founders, had an air of mystery about them that is very common to the figures of that time. And in fact, in Bhimnag, do you know, Rita, there is a picture without any caption of Shama Prasad Mukherjee, and then there are the pictures of the others of the Bhimnag and his brother. So when I saw Shama Prasad Mukherjee, I said, this man looks familiar. And I asked them who this is, and this is Shama Prasad Mukherjee. Of course, that's why it's familiar. Why have you put his picture there? Because, well, they said he used to frequent our shop, you know. So, but there was no dissonance in register between Bhimnag and Shama Prasad Mukherjee. Both had the air of greatness about them. So I was fascinated by the kind of this atmosphere that surrounded the sweet shop owner, and I thought I want to collect these portraits, take photographs of these portraits, and replicate them in another setting, and create a kind of confrontation between a viewer and the portrait itself. And that's
that. That was wonderful. Yes, but what we did not get to see, I did not get to see, were some of the street signs. So I thought perhaps you could show the viewers.
The other thing I did was there were two other things I did. I collected gifts that I had never put to any use. It started with a remark I made to my wife when I got a Tiffany lamp, which was a sensor lamp, as a gift after I sang at a classical concert in Salt Lake. And I said to my wife, this is wonderful, but what will I do? What will we do with this? I said to her, I'll put it in an exhibition of unusable gifts. And that's how that idea began.
That was very interesting also, the gifts.
And the third,
and then these signs, because I think we're almost going to be running out of time. So I thought maybe you could show us.
The third component of the exhibition were what I call Indian road signs. So if you see Indian road signs, they are made of steel with a vinyl surface, and they have letters on them saying, you know, giving you the name of the street, or they could be saying something like cleanliness is next to godliness, or haste makes waste, I suddenly began to sort of feel, I suddenly began to hear lines of poetry or even sentences from philosophy and in various languages in my head, which I felt have their home in a road sign of that kind. So I began to make these road signs through a sign maker in Godiahat. And I made 2 during lockdown with sentences from Philip Larkin, things he had said in an interview, in 2 interviews. This is one of them. Deprivation is for me what daffodils were for Wordsworth. This I thought seemed appropriate to the lockdown. This was one of the signs. And I'll quickly show you the other one that I got made. And this too is from Larkin. Can you read the letters on the side? Are they readable?
Very good. Yes. Hold it up.
I see life more as an affair of solitude diversified by company than as an affair of company diversified by solitude. This is Philip Larkin again. That's a road sign. That's a road sign that I've created. So these were made during the lockdown. They were a kind of homage to the kind of standstill our life.
So since you have given some of this poetry to people of Calcutta, I was wondering if I may also, since I'm talking to a poet,
Yes.
I went back to Keats, and Keats had this particular verse which said, "If by dull rhymes our English must be chained," I'm sure you know this particular set of verses, "and like Andromeda, the sonnet sweet fettered, in spite of pained loveliness, let us find out if we must be constrained." So on that, I decided to write a sonnet. The only thing I do in the poetry genre is to write lots and lots of sonnets and limericks. So I hope you will forgive me if I can read out one that I have done on Corona.
Wonderful.
I think it's appropriate.
Yes.
May I? And I call it, "Let's Unchain from Corona Uncertainties." If
Right.
by growing rumors our lives must be chained, then we will forever in the morass of gloom be maimed. For COVID numbers will surely grow from day to day. So we must not be cowed down, but find our way to combat, construct, conceive, and conspire, to build our bridges and in our businesses aspire. For GDP will shrink and manufacturing take big hit. From real estate to retail, there will be no true fit. So this is the time to plan and sustain your brand and make your communication construct on firm stand. This is the time to talk and trend and many fences mend. This is the hour for all your strategies to expend. Be safe and secure. Let's endure, but look sharp for corona-free days to the strum of David's harp.
Excellent. Great. Thank you for that.
Good to hear, because only you will understand that reference to David's harp, right?
Well, I don't know that. I'm sure there are others.
So I think we've almost come to the end of our chat. I was so wanting to hear you sing, but as you said, when you're a perfectionist and unless your voice is at top timber, you don't want to do that.
I mean, I can try a line, but I'm not sure.
Try a line or two. Let's give it a nice ending then.
I don't know if it will work. If it doesn't work, I'm going to stop.
All right. All right.
So this is Rag Megh. I'm just try and see if my voice.
Sure.
घूमर घूमर आए घूमर घूमर आए कार कार भदरा घूमर 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 आए घूमर घूमर आए घूमर 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 आए वो. So I just gave you a taste of it. This is the khayal. It'll take time to get into it, but this is Rag Megh, and it's a khayal, madhyalay bandish in Rag Megh.
Thank you so much.
Kare kare badra. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mrs. Bhimani. Thank you, Mrs. Chaudhuri. May we request Mrs. Zina Bose. She's an executive committee member of Calcutta Management Association. We request her to kindly propose the formal vote of thanks and the closing remarks, please. Ma'am.
Mr. Chaudhuri, Rita Di, it was a lovely evening for all of us. We really enjoyed your session. What I understand from both of you, especially Mr. Chaudhuri, you are really enjoying the lockdown period. Being so creative, you're making good use of it. From music to literature to road signs to cooking, so you're making really good use of it. Unfortunately, we can't taste your food, your cooking at this moment. Maybe we can be fortunate enough to really experience that sometime later. Rita Di, I would like to share with you that my little granddaughter, she's 7, she's also learning her keyboard with the help of this sort of a WhatsApp call from her teacher. So she's on the same boat with you.
Great.
Mr. Chaudhuri, what would be your message for the next generation?
Are you asking both of us what the message is for
Yes,
next gen?
Why not?
Yes, yes. I think the next gen has to persist with what they're best at doing, or possibly if they're facing challenges, get into startup mode with a business if they are entrepreneurial. So they are the ones who are our hope, and they have to ignite, and they have to create something for themselves, create spaces for themselves to carry on in these uncertain times.
Mr. Chaudhuri, what about you? Your ideas for the next gen?
Be independent-minded and don't get appropriated. When you're young, when you're about 20 or so, you reach a kind of first phase of maturity. And so I'm not talking about teenage rebellion, but you reject through a kind of new sense of conviction a lot that has happened in the earlier generation. But then, so one thinks that hope is around the corner as this generation comes of age. But then they have to get jobs, and then they get appropriated. They follow down exactly the same route, and this is a huge problem in India. This lack of independent-mindedness, and with every new generation, we have a new opportunity, or this independent-mindedness has been lacking to come into existence. So I would say to the new generation, try, it's difficult, try not to be appropriated, to remain independent-minded.
Thank you, Mr. Chaudhuri. Thank you, Rita B. I'm sure our young members from of the Calcutta Management Association, they would be really happy to get these messages from you. And since I belong to a university, a fairly new university of this region, of the Eastern region, Nivedita University, my students, I will convey your messages to them too.
Thank you very much.
On behalf of the members of Calcutta Management Association and on my personal note also, let me extend my heartiest thanks to you all. Thank you, Rita Di. Thank you, Mr. Chaudhuri.
Many thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you. That's been lovely.
Bye.
Okay.
Bye. Good night. Good night.